Hello, everyone. My name is Vernice, and this is my podcast, Speak Up. Shout out to my new listeners out there. For those of you that don't know, the mission statement for this podcast is we'll use our voices to motivate people to overcome life challenges through self love and respect. This is a place for self love and respect. We entered a new month. Oh, my goodness. I don't know where 2025 is going, but we halfway there. Let's keep grinding hard. I'm excited for today's episode. I'm going to do it like a nice artist spotlight mix up episode. This is a very talented artist, very talented CEO. I want y'all to give it up for Eban Jackson. Hey,
How we doing? How we doing? Happy Sunday.
happy Sunday, right? We're recording. Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to start my morning with this interview.
Hey, like I said, this is a great start to the month. You know what I'm saying? Look, summer. Are we finally in summer? I think we
A little more. I think a few more weeks.
like maybe like 10, 20 days.
I feel it though. It feel like summer. Though.
Come on now, that's sun that's peaking out. So you feel me?
It's time to get right.
But I'm glad to be
Welcome to Speak Up. You're welcome. I love it. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so my name is Eban Jackson. Of course, as I was introduced, I am an artist and CEO of my own independent record label, Greatness Over Everything.
Mhm.
I also am a personal trainer out in LA, and I'm out here trying to spread the goodness of Greatness Over Everything. Pretty much my brand and company, pretty much stems behind, just pushing forward and being a 1% better every day. From the training to the music, it's pretty much versatile as far as, like I said, the message that we're pretty much, giving to the people is just, we want you to come out and be your best every day. At the end of the day, we have life comes through. We have different obstacles and things that can come and, try to stop us. But, as long as our mindset is, is always, thinking about greater and thinking about better and thinking about how we can always advance ourselves and how we can use those obstacles and challenges to now propel us into, our purpose. That's pretty much where we're at with with GOE and like I said, just spreading the good word and positivity.
Well, you came to the right place. You on SpeakUpJV. I'm excited to pick your brain about that. And I feel like fitness, music, entrepreneurship, all that go hand in hand with the mindset. So I'm excited. So as I mentioned, y'all, you are an artist. So let's get into your artist spotlight. So yeah, what got you started with music?
So it's so funny, always going back and telling the story. My dad actually was an artist coming up in LA.
Mhm.
Didn't really get to expand on his dream. He had me, my brother, and my sister. So, like I said, talked about a little bit earlier, those life obstacles kind of coming into play and, just kind of taking over. So he didn't really get to, expand. One day I end up finding an old mixtape. I may have barely maybe been 8 or 10, somewhere around there. And just kind of inspired me. And from there, I just kind of, picked up the pen and the pad and, I'd slowly sit off and, fill out my composition books of rhymes and lyrics and stuff like that. And it wasn't until my freshman year of college, 2015, that I actually wrote my first song and recorded my first video. So it was pretty much a combination of just, timing and just something that, I was just kind of interested in at one point in time and being a hobby. But once I got to that first song and that first video, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I could do something with this. In the meantime, in between time, as I was doing the music, I was also playing football as well. So, it was kind of difficult to kind of, put all of my, eggs in one basket as far as music. So pretty much spent the next, I believe, 4 years. I was still going to school. Ended up going to Lincoln University, HBCU out in PA, 1854. I always got a rep.
Okay.
But ended up going out there for school. Pretty much propelled me into, again, making some more connections on the East Coast, kind of getting a little bit more into the music, while I was also, going to school, getting my degree in psychology. Graduated 2020, the pandemic, pretty much, sent everybody home. That whole crazy little year, and years to follow that, pretty much, like I said, propelled me right into the music because I graduated 2020. It was like, you got to go home, do your thing. You finish your senior semester, second semester of your senior year, out in LA. From that point, I was like, okay, well, shoot, this is my opportunity to now put my all into the music. So pretty much from 2020 until now, we've been, full press on play with the music, and shoot, the rest is a developing story.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And I love how like, it took you. I like how you started it later in your life. Like we hear the stories when people are like little kids, but I love how you were like, no, that's all I want to do, and you on it. And so, speaking of like composition books and lyrics and writing, who is your favorite lyricist of all time?
I'm gonna get a little backdrag for this one right here. But my
Okay.
favorite lyricist is Jay-Z. Being,
Okay.
being with an East Coast favorite
Mhm,
artist is I see how that can be a little tricky. But
mhm,
yeah, Jay-Z has always been my favorite artist. I remember listening to the Black Album when it
mhm,
first came out, and that was like my first real experience in listening to hip hop and music outside of what was playing on the radio and what I was listening to, like on the everyday. But um, from there, once I pretty much heard that, and like I said, with influence from my dad, who was also a pretty solid lyricist as well. Um, it was just like, okay, like this, there's another side to this. It gets a little bit deeper than just words over a song, or I'm never opposed to any vibes or anything like that. But when you can actually story tell, and
mhm.
give people something to add some imagery to, and just something that people can actually soak into and kind of you know dissect, and it's not just so kind of like fluffy, and kind of just here in the moment, go on the next, something that's really like, timeless. So, that's like I said, that's pretty much where my influence comes from.
I like that. Yeah, and I noticed with your lyrics, you're really good at doing like the building block lyrics. Like you said, you have to dissect what you're saying. And it's like, oh, that's what you meant. Like your flow, you be on them beats. Like I was gonna say that on you, give me your flowers.
I appreciate
Yeah. So, speaking of music and projects and stuff, so tell us about your project, Richer Than Before.
Richer Than Before. So, Richer Than Before is real special because through this process of me being an independent artist, and like I said, life happening, and
Hmm.
different things coming up and everything, I kind of went through a almost like a 2 year phase, one and a half year phase, where I was just trying to find myself again, trying to find myself in the music, trying to find myself in life, just trying to figure out where my next steps were going to be and what direction they were going to be. So there was a lot of uh, I don't call it doubt, I call it self reflection,
Hmm.
and just understanding, where I'm at, and where, um, I'm going to end up, and where I want to end up, and what that looks like, and what that's going to take. And like I said, it's just not doing the same things. You have to, step out of your comfort zone with certain things. You have to, do things that you may not necessarily have the most experience in or know the most about, but being able to indulge and let your faith lead you is something that definitely helped me. So along with that process came the rebrand to Eban Jackson. At first, I was going by CMG Sos, which was my stage name, name I've been going by for years, pretty much since I started doing the music. And that rebrand was huge in the dropping of this tape, because it was essentially what rolled into now me being richer than before. And
Hmm.
when I say richer than before, I don't mean in the physicality of it, in the monetary sense of it. I'm talking richer in mindset, just richer in belief, richer in just like status, as far as like me, and being able to go out and network and talk to people, and people actually knowing who I am. Because I always think, not even I always think I always know, and I've always, took that as something that's very pivotal in people's process, is your network. Your network is your net worth. At the end of the day. So as long as I'm out connecting with the right people, talking to the right people, shaking the right hands, kissing the right babies, you know what I'm saying? It begins to up your status, and up your just your overall uh take on in your industry, or wherever you're doing in any case. But for me, it was the music, and for me it was just being in the music industry and the entertainment industry and different things and such like that. So Richer Than Before pretty much came from the rebrand, and just a small time for me to reflect on my change in finally stepping into just being myself and being original. That was the whole reason why we did the rebrand. I just wanted to be more original. You can go by a stage name for so long, and people are gonna call you that stage name for however long it is. But I mean, you can always be that God-given name that you got when you came out your mama. So, and with me having such a unique name as Eban Jackson, it was like, oh, why not? Like you have a name that that don't nobody else have. Like I'm not a David, I'm not a Gary, I'm not a Kyle. You know what I'm saying? Where few people share that name, and no disrespect to anybody whose name is David Kyle and all of that, but just being just having the opportunity and being blessed with the opportunity to be individualistic just off of the name alone was huge. So it was like, man, let's go with that. So again, like I said, that kind of just rolled right into just the name of the tape, and pretty much the tape pretty much speaks to that on different levels, just as far as from the mindset, from the journey, from the change, and like I said, just pretty much the whole overall scope of where I was at that time. Yeah.
I love that. And like when I first read the title, Richard, and before, the word that came to me is progress, and that's actually what we'll be talking about today on this episode. And I love how you took what you said about like doubt and you changed it to the word reflection. Because yeah, I feel like when we have those thoughts, it's really just like, what do we need to work on to become better? So I love how you talked about the rebrand and everything and how that goes hand in hand. So
Right.
what's your favorite song on the project and why?
Oof. It's always hard to pick my favorite song.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everything I kind of create, it has some kind of place in my heart. I would have to say my favorite on that one was Recognized.
Okay.
And that's also the first track as well too.
Came in strong.
And that track alone, again was like I said, being in that space where you're operating in that self-reflection, there's a lot going through your mind, and there's a lot that you're kind of trying to deal with. You got your the empty thoughts, and then you have the thoughts that you feel like you're you may be overshooting, or they may be like too big, and you got to tell yourself like, man, you can never dream too big, you can never think too big. So Recognize was really like one of those like, hey, like you better recognize, like I'm not like these other dudes, I'm not like these other people, I'm not like these other artists, like I'm on a totally different scale when it comes to just how I see myself in the world. It's just like, this is a different field over here. Like I said, I'm thinking different, I'm moving different, hanging out with different people. Like I said, my network is being expanded on as well. So it's time for people to recognize that. Like, and if you're gonna be over here on our side, on our team, and you messing with us, then this is what we on. And if you're not on that, then respectfully, you can do your thing. But that's not what we on over here. So Recognize is definitely one of those tracks where I was like, I was really, I was really soaking in the moment, you know what I'm saying? And I was just like, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm going through. But they're gonna recognize that like this is different.
And I love when artists have good self-talk, because honestly, lyrics are affirmations. So it's like if you on there saying these depressed lyrics, and there's no wrong. Songs vent. You have your songs for different things. But I love when artists speak power into themselves. So that's really impressive. My favorites on there, though, I gotta say my favorites is Used to It. If you ask me, let me know. So look, so throw it out there. Look,
my next
not in my head for sure, huh?
On. You Used to It is like my next favorite. Then if you ask, like I said, they all, it's like I can drag and drop. I can drag and drop. I love that though. You Used to It is definitely one of my favorites as well too. I love that.
I gotta shout it out. So any upcoming shows or projects that you would like to shout out?
Yes. So we had the Black Collar show a little bit ago. So that was kind of the introduction to the Chasing Championships EP that we're going to be dropping with Black Collar. So that's going to be a nice little collab tape. EJ, great drummer, great producer as well too. Like when you already incorporate and implement that live sound, when you put it in those real, those studio instrumentals is chef's kiss. So that will be dropping in July. So we're definitely looking forward to that. A few shows coming up in July as well too. Dates are still pending, but we on the move and we outside. Summertime, like I said, we trying to spread the love, spread the positivity, and have some fun.
Look, busy summer coming up. I love it.
Yep,
So
yep.
before we get into the episode, tell us about your fitness career and journey.
Okay, yeah. So basically started personal training about 5 years ago as well too. Like I said, pretty much pandemic. Like we were pretty much locked up doing our thing. So over that time, got a little chubby, but then started working out. And again, like it's just one of those things where like certain things just happen for a reason. Um, I'm literally training at 24 Hour Fitness. That was where I was training at for a while in Carson, and one of the general managers of the personal training department, comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, like, have you ever thought about, personal training and this and that?" Like I said, I'm an athlete, been an athlete my whole life, played football, baseball, and basketball. So, working out really is not foreign to me. But at the time, again, after the process that, a lot of athletes go through from being, college athletes, that switching into the pros, trying to figure out if you want to go to the pros, and then if you're not going to go to the pros, that kind of limbo time. And the pandemic really was not helpful for in that aspect either, because everybody's kind of at home. Teams are not having tryouts, and they're not doing this and they're not doing that because everybody is concerned about COVID and different stuff like that. So just being in that, like I said, that space of like, what am I doing? So as I'm working out and doing my own thing, he comes over and he's like, hey, like, if you're interested, I can, we can figure out, how to get you certified, and I can show you how to do this and this, whoop, whoop, whoop. And I'm just like, okay, like this is pretty cool. I'll look into it. I'll think about it. Not even gonna lie. I was so far from that I didn't even really pay it no mind. And I kind of how you see people every now and then, you like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna check in. You definitely got some kind of truth to it, where you like, oh yeah, like I'm really am gonna check in. But then I was just like, I got all this other stuff going on. Like I'm trying to do the music, I'm trying to do this and do that. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was so crazy how it happened. I'm on a flight to Philly, and I'm by myself. I'm in LAX, not thinking nothing of it. The personal training manager that worked at Carson, that was trying to get me to become a trainer, he's on my flight to Philly.
Wow.
And not only was he on my flight to Philly, he was on my flight back from Philly.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? This is no coincidence. Like this is definitely something that I need to really check into and really look into. So from there, pretty much got my certification from there. And then shoot, it's been sky's the limit from there. I've had a lot of private clients. Still doing personal training out in LA as well too, private and online sessions as well too. So, like I said, it's just another avenue to be able to preach the word that I'm pretty much already doing with the music, as far as, like I said, the greatness and being 1% better, and now taking it to a real life goal and a real long-term longevity type of goal, for people, and seeing people really change their life in a month, and literally 4 weeks, seeing people dedicate themselves to bettering themselves on a daily basis, and seeing people, hearing people like, oh, hey, like everything that you showed me how to do, I've taken it on my own, and I've applied it to myself, and I feel so much better. And I'm and it's always funny when you hear, oh, I should have did this sooner, but timing is everything, and everybody has their time where it's going to come, and they're going to that light bulb is going to click on. So just being able to be there for people when that light bulb is flickering, and being able to apply a little bit of energy to them, that like I said, keep that light bulb on, and to be like, it's more than just hanging out, and more than just going through life with no real goal in sight, or no real ledger to kind of go off of, or anything to kind of just base anything off of. It's just you want to have some structure, you want to have some good habits, you want to have some things that are going to again put you in a better life expectancy. Life is just so crazy nowadays, and with the food and just everything that's going on, you really have to take your health into a huge accountability. So
Definitely.
just being able to be that that small staple that can hold people's health and longevity together is definitely the main reason why I continue to keep on advocating for the personal training and for just working out and conditioning, and like I said, it's just overall thing. And like I said, once you fix one area in life, it just bleeds into the rest of your life. So again, it's just positive reinforcement, and just like allowing people to understand that you can do it, and it's not just something that you see on Instagram or something that you see on social media that everybody is doing that you can't do or it can't be accomplished.
Okay, I love that, man. Y'all better tap in. Look, summer around the corner. Look, you got the cheat codes and all that.
I'm trying to tell you, look, summer around the corner. Next summer is gonna come up. You know what I'm saying? Like you got Christmas. Like you got to look good for life. It's funny because of course, summer is always the staple time to kind of start working out. But it's like if you start working out after the summer, you're gonna look just as good the next summer. You know what I'm saying, as you would that last little, 3 little weeks you tried to squeeze in right there, and then once you train through the winter, getting to next summer, you're going to be like, well, dang, like I've been doing it this long, I might as well keep on doing it. And then now it's a habit. Now you have a healthy habit that you built.
And it becomes a lifestyle at that point.
Becomes a lifestyle at that point.
Look, I love this health and wellness on here. I'm excited for today, y'all. But y'all, let's get into the AXO question of the day. So if you're out there listening, please comment. I always go back and read the comments. I'm going to answer the AXO question first, and I'm going to let you answer. So today's AXO is, what's something that help? Oh, sorry, y'all. Wait. Today's episode is titled, actually, we get to that, Count the Progress. So we're going to be talking about acknowledging your progress and not getting too comfortable with it. So yes, today's AXO question of the day is, what's something that helps you keep going even when the journey starts to feel challenging? So for me personally, it's prayer. Like I get those moments where I've got to get down on my knees and just pray, and also tapping in with my community, with my village, so my close friends, close family members, the people who like know literally my passions, what I'm working on, how passionate these things are for me, who can like just give me that that I need to keep going forward. Like we're not meant to do this life alone. I know we see so many posts like, I was on 10 toes by myself. Don't get me wrong, we got things we do on our own, but you need your village. I'm sorry, I'm quick to say I need, whether it's a quote, a prayer, someone praying for you, anything, we need that. So those are my ways. What about you? What's one of your favorite ways?
Definitely, that village comes into play. Very, 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 very big. Look, I had to vary it out because 1000%. I've always had a great village behind me. My mom and dad are huge in my village, and my brother and my sister. My brother's my manager, so that already goes to show, how tight-knit of a family we are. But one thing I will say outside of my village is the consistency that I've put together over time. Your motivation is always going to leave, but as long as you stay consistent, it'll bring your motivation back. And that's something that I've seen work directly through the fitness industry. Because there are going to be days where you soar. There's going to be days where, you don't feel like it. And even outside of the fitness, like even as an athlete, growing up and playing ball, and, it's going to be days where you don't want to go to practice. There's going to be days where like you're not all the way there, during the film meetings, you know what I'm saying? But as long as you continue to show up and you push to give 100, even if you can't give 100, and you have people that are willing to pull that 100% out of you, even when you're not willing or you're not able to give, that 100%, it does still create result. So it's just like I said, 1% better. If I can continue to get better at something in my life or at something in my career, something in whatever realm that I'm trying to, establish myself in, I will just continue to stack those days. And 1% every day is better than 1% on a week or no percent on one day or whatever the case may be. So really my consistency is what kind of keeps me in the loop, because it's like I can't stop now. Like really when you get to the point where it's like you can't stop now, it's like that's all you need essentially at this point. It's like I'm too deep in. I've already, I've learned these lessons. I never really look at things as losses. Like we don't take L's. We just learn. We
There
learn,
we go.
learn lessons, and also through the wins, we learn as well too. And we celebrate those wins, and we celebrate the lessons as well too, because it's always the bigger picture and what's at the end of it was at the end of the rainbow. You know what I'm saying? Not where it's at the beginning.
No, that's a good quote. And I must say, y'all, this episode is coming out later in June, but we are recording this on the 1st of June. So these are some good quotes right now to start my month off. I just want to say, so y'all, let's talk about the importance of acknowledging your progress. Sometimes the journey gets challenging and you have to turn around and really be like, how far did I come? I'm gonna give you guys an example. So y'all know I did my first marathon last year. And 26 miles is crazy, 26.2, whatever it is. I don't even know at this point. But when I got to mile 20, I was like, what the F am I doing? And you get to a point, it's they say mile 20, mile 21 is where you start questioning yourself, like, why am I out here? What am I doing? And I had to take a moment to be like, okay, you just did most of it. You just got to finish that last 4 or 5. And you had to be real with yourself. And if you don't do little things like that, you're more likely to quit because you're just so focused on this moment. But what about how far you came and that you actually are dang near right there? I've heard so many lines about people who almost quit, whatever they're passionate about. And that next week, that blessing came, whatever it was they were working for. So you never know, honestly, when that's about to come. It might be a couple more steps away, right? So I like to think of little examples like that. And, I'm glad that you brought up working out because, training your mind, training yourself. It's like, I look at, I remember when I couldn't run 2 miles, 3 miles, and it's like, I could do 5. So those little reminders and that self-talk really helps you, on along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and give yourself your flowers along the way. So I have a question. Has there been a challenge in your music career that caused you to pause and acknowledge how far you came, to kind of help you to keep going?
Oh yeah. Like I said, we kind of spoke a little bit about it as far as the rebrand and just like I said, kind of coming from that pandemic, year going into pretty much what was that, like 2021, 2022. So like I said, during that rebrand, right before the rebrand, I had that's when I did the feature with RJ. We did Racks. I was actually working with another artist that was from Atlanta that things didn't really pan out with. And then also too, even with the RJ track, RJ wasn't even back out at that time. I think he didn't start coming back out until about 2021, 2022, maybe, like somewhere up in there. So having some things that gave me a little bit of momentum during that time of just, everybody kind of being in a still place. And then when everything opened back up, trying to figure out how I was going to, make that next step and, continue to keep it rolling and continue to, keep on pushing. I was definitely, at a standstill for a little bit. And like I said, that's kind of what, that's what prompted the rebrand to, Eban Jackson and just, like, okay, like you're gonna run out of gimmicks at some point if you're gonna be the gimmick guy. And like I said, more power to everybody that's doing their thing. However you gotta get it, you gotta get it. I'm not, putting anybody down or anything like that. But I know for me, I operate the best in authenticity. I operate the best when it's natural, and it's not something that's being forced, or it's not like I'm trying to get some laughs, or I'm trying to, do this. Like it's I mean, you want to be intentional, but you don't want to be intentionally fake or intentionally like, where it's like, oh, I'm begging for this attention. Like, no. I want the attention to come naturally, but because of my intention in what I'm doing and the message that I'm presenting and the stuff that I'm saying, it brings the attention that I want, because now people are going to be more, they're going to be more keen to wanting to mess with something that's more authentic versus, something that's kind of here and there, kind of wishy-washy and stuff like that. Because once that gimmick is over, you got to come up with the next one. You got to come out. And so it's like if I can be thoroughly and wholeheartedly myself 365 days of the year, like I'm not gonna run out of nothing. I'm not gonna run out of content. I'm not gonna run out of things to say. I'm not gonna run out of concepts. I'm not gonna run out of visuals or anything like that, because everything is me. So I think that's definitely one of the things that allows me to to be me. It's just operating in that authenticity and just, like I said, just being true to yourself, man. Just being true to yourself.
That's real. And I feel like when you're being yourself, you have an unlimited source, you know? So that's great. But you guys, it is now time for the tweet up segment. I know I like Twitter, whatever they want to call it. Something that I tweeted this week that goes with today's episode is the progress is real. The comfort zone is real too. Keep going. So this is important because you got to use your progress as a reason to keep going. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to pause, clap for yourself, had a low moment, but you got to keep going too. The comfort zone, it will try to convince you to quit. I mean, I've gotten comfortable plenty of times in life. Well, I did this, I did that. I could stop here and like I'm good. But there's still actually more to do on the journey. Just like with the marathon, you can't get your medal if you stop at mile 20 because you got comfortable, right?
Hold up.
So it's pretty much the same thing. So I feel like it's really about balance. I think it's like getting the comfort, progress, but still pushing yourself and using both of those as a motivation. So I have a question for you. Any advice you would give to a person who feels trapped in the comfort zone?
Um, Find some things that are going to challenge you
Mm,
in that realm that you're in. Um, for me, in the music realm, my comfortability always comes from when I recorded X amount of tracks. One thing about me that I started doing very very early on was collecting the catalog. I mean, every song is not always going to be dropped. You're not always going to make your number one hit, as soon as you walk into the studio. But that consistency of working and doing tracks and just trying different beats and trying different lyrics and trying different flows and all of this other different stuff like that. Um, I would get into a mode where I'm going, and I'm like, okay, I'd have made a lot of music. Like, let me just go ahead and chill for a little bit. Like,
mm,
nah, like you don't know if that next song is gonna be the song. Like, oh, I didn't caught my vibe. I done figured it out. I didn't, this is the right formula right here for this. What I just kind of did. So just being in a position of challenging myself, like my brother, like he's very very high on, like, like I'm not gonna let you sit up in here and chill.
love that.
Like, we, basically I have my setup as well. I do have a in-house setup, other than the studio setup that we do go to and pretty much collab on when we have other artists, or we're doing bigger projects and stuff like that. You got to have something in, it's like having a basketball hoop at the house. What I'm saying, something I can just always kind of shoot on, and just put up shots for practice. So he's like, like, you ain't recording nothing in a minute. Also my business partner too, that's been working with me since I started, rapping back in 2016. He's always like, hey man, like, I ain't heard no new music in a minute. Like, I ain't heard nothing new. You know what I'm saying? I ain't,
Mm,
so just constantly being, again, like I said, having that village that's around and supports you, and know that it takes a certain type of tenacity and a certain type of consistency to be great. And that's what pretty much, kind of like I said, it helps me excel in and not be too comfortable. Also too, like, just in life, I mean, we have like goals and accomplishments that we're looking to reach. And once we reach those accomplishments and those goals, like even with the personal training, like, when I first started personal training, it was like, okay, like, I want 5 clients. You get those 5 clients, and now you're scheduling and you're doing this, and you're so comfortable with, okay, I got this client here, I got this client here, I got this client here, I got them at this time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You may get into that ebb and flow for about a month, but one of those clients might fall off.
yeah. Oh.
Another one of those clients might go on vacation. Another client might go, they might get hurt, do not, maybe not doing nothing with me, of course, but they might get hurt outside at work or something like that, or whatever. And now your 5 clients turns into 2 clients, one
Yeah.
client, when in that 5 client span, you should have still been trying to get 5 more clients. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? So, again, man, it's just again, like you said, giving yourself that pat on the back, because it's like you want to be able to reach those benchmarks. You want to be able to acknowledge, the and fall in love with the process. Like that's one of the things I would say is heavily important, like in anything that you do. Like if you don't let a process, like you're that lack of motivation is going to come inevitably. I find myself, studying, so much more, even when it comes to the music and the personal training. um I've gone to different classes, taken different certifications, and gotten different information as far as the personal training.
Mhm.
Also, come on now, our guy Jay Brock, whenever he has his panels and he brings out all of these different, facets of the industry, and they're giving us their game and dropping those gems and stuff like that. Like, Reason at the last one, he was just saying how, just again, another testament to your network being your net worth, and just building relationships, like even with us, we ran into each other at how many J Brock shows before we actually got this thing going. And again, timing is everything, but
Mhm.
it's about cultivating those relationships, and um, not being comfortable just going into the room knowing that V know me, and V gonna say what's up to me whenever she see me, because
Mhm.
she know who I am. But it's about that next step. Like, okay, like how can I help her? How can she help me? How can we help each other to
Mhm.
help us? You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
again, just taking what it is that you have and expanding on it, and just not being in a position where it's like, this is it, like this is what I wanted, so I'm here. Like what else is there? What else can you get? What else can you accomplish? What else
How
can
can I
come out
grow
of this
more?
situation? Because we're not, if we're not using again, our network or anything, just any of our opportunities, or the things that we have readily available to us, if we're not using that to now pivot and do something different and make it bigger, then I mean, at some point it's just going to be what it is. And I mean, you never know, people have so many small ideas that end up being so big,
Because they keep growing on it.
and it just takes time,
And
and it just takes time, and it just takes thoughts, and it just takes, again, the motivation to want more. At the end of the day, like that's one thing that I tell people, like, you got to want more for yourself. You can't just be caught up in this, just what you have right now, because I mean, it is good. It's the I feel like also too, people are very, very high on the instant gratification, and
oh
being
yeah.
able to, have things and want things, and they get it right then and there, or they get it in a small period of time, or once they get it, it's like, oh, like I said, this is what I wanted, and it's just like, there's more. Like you can run this race a little bit longer. Like you said, I ran the 20. Like I like wholeheartedly, like in my heart and soul, I ran 20 miles.
That way. Yeah, it's like, but I got more to do. The job's not done.
You know what I'm saying? But that extra 6 miles, you feel me? You get a reward.
Yeah.
And you get that medal, and you get that okay, like, I could have been happy with myself at 20 miles, but now I'm even more happy. Now everyone else is celebrating me at the 26, because now I've
Get
pushed
that.
myself to get to that next step. And now you might mess around and go run another marathon and might hit 30. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? So now
We'll
you
do it.
feel what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
just keeps on unraveling, and you
And
go down a rabbit hole of success, and that's pretty much what you want.
I love that. I hope y'all out there taking notes. You out here dropping gems. Like, I love how you talked about, like, because I feel like with businesses in general, they talk about the importance of stability. And, that goes hand in hand, like you said, if one client was to fall off. And then I love what you mentioned about your village holding you accountable. Like, I'm gonna be real. Are they really your real friends if they just let you sit there and let your potential go to waste? If they like they never push you to the next limit. Like, I love tough love. I think as long as it's healthy, of course. I don't see nothing wrong with somebody letting you know, like, hey, you was dropping episodes. What happened? Or where that new single coming out? That extra pressure. So thank you for that amazing answer, because that was very insightful. But you guys, it is now time for the Life Up segment. So the life up is when I take the topic and I relate it to issue of today as well. So we're kind of already we're talking about this one, but one is getting too comfortable in the progress, which we just talked about. Another one is being afraid of the grind and hard work that creates the progress. So no pain, no gain, like they say. No, look, no ticket, no skates. All that goes hand in hand. Like, what you scared of? Like, everybody be like, oh, I have this big mission, this thing I want to do, but it's like, did you do the work for it? Did you build the portfolio? And I think all that goes together. Like, just like with, I mean, we could say this with some sit-ups. I mean, we got to be for that soreness, right? So I like looking in the lyrics, so listening to some of yours. So in your song "Too Close," you say the quote, "How you want the shine, but ain't fell in love with the grind." So what does that quote mean to you?
Falling in love with the process. You know, we kind of touched on that a little bit, you know, just a couple seconds ago. But again, like I said, it's about falling in love with the highs and the lows of it. You know, I go back to, you know, like I said, a lot of my experience in just the confidence to push through and just, you know, like I said before, being consistent and, you know, trying to push myself. It all pretty much stems from being an athlete. And, you know, being in those moments where, you know, you may not win the game that you're supposed to win. You know, you may not practice the way you want to practice. You may not have, you know, scored as many times as you were supposed to score. You might have forgot a play. You know, you might have let your teammate down or different things like that. So, but you have to fall in love with all of that, because all of those are, again, teaching moments. Those are lessons. You know, they're not losses. Like, it may be an L on the schedule. You feel me? But that L doesn't stand for loss. It stands for lesson. It stands for learn. You know, you figured out what you did wrong on that day. So now when you go into that next game, you're not gonna do that again. You know, and the same with the music. You know, it's making a song and somebody saying like, "Oh no, I don't really like this song." Like, that's perfectly fine. You know, part of the process. You know, and one thing that's also really really good about like music is in versus, like, you know, being an athlete and stuff like that. Like, being an athlete is very black and white. It's either you win or you lose. You know, like, if you're not somebody that's really into the game, where you can really point out those like small little critiques, like, oh, like you know, you had this play on the 20-yard line where that should have did this, you know, like different things like that. Like, you kind of get a little bit deeper into the game. But with the music, you know, it's very very opinion based, you know, and it's you have a wider variety of people that will accept something that other people may not accept, you know. So with that being said, and being in an industry like this, you got to be in love with the process, because it's like any day now you can get one person to like it, then that one person turns into two people, that two people turns into six people, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a waterfall of consistency that kind of, you know, flows into this pool of, you know, of greatness at the end of the day, you know. And it's just like, you know, now you have all of these people that are, you know, tapped in. You got all of these people that are, you know, encouraged by your stuff. You have all these people that are motivated by you. And you just continue to build, and you just continue to build. And again, you know, congratulating yourself for that progress on the way and on the way, but not being too complacent to where it's like, okay, like I've gotten the instant gratification that I seeked in the beginning of this, and it's like, let me just keep on, you know, let me keep on churning, let me keep on moving, let me keep on figuring out different ways and stuff like that. And again, like, all of this is part of the process, and the process does not end until you end. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very, very big on, like, if you don't learn something every day, you're not doing it right.
That's big. Like, I like that. I'm a student first. I say that too.
It can be as small as, you know, you just learning that, you know, I kid you not, I just learned the other day, like, you know, if you put two iPhones together, like, it shares whatever information that you have on the screen or whatever the case is, you know. And like, oh, that's perfect, because now when I run into somebody and they like, oh, well, what's your music? What's your music link and this and that? Let me go ahead and tap this iPhone for you real quick. You know, you can get it right to your phone. And you know, like I said, just little things as small as that, and you know, you just want to be able to keep on, you know, adding to your arsenal. And what I mean by that is just, you know, adding knowledge. You know, again, talking to people, shaking hands. You know, adding people to your network, you know, adding skills to your toolbox, you know. But all of that, again, it just circles back to being in love with the process. And like, when you're actually in love with the process, you're going to find yourself kind of harping on those, like I said, those small facets of the game. You know, you're going to get to the details, you're going to get to the nitty gritty, you're going to get to the kibbles and bits, you know what I'm saying, the meat and potatoes of it, you know what I'm saying? So you know, you just want to be able to find yourself in love with something that you want to immerse yourself in, everything that every little thing that has to go with it, you know. So like, those things is, for me, an example right now is like, I'm trying to learn how to make beats.
And so, there's a lot that goes into that.
I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into that. But again, like, that's just where I'm at in my process. And finding, and again, that's also, like I said, it's a challenge, so it's like, okay, like I'm finding something to continue to, I'm saying, I got to work my brain, like my brain not working, and
in a new way.
it's like I get, you put yourself in a stagnant place, you put yourself in that state of comfortability because you're not, grinding your gears, so um yeah, man, you just got to be in love with the process, man. Like it's not gonna happen overnight. If it does happen overnight, that's great. But what about tomorrow night? And what
It's
about
rare that it does. And I love how you broke all that down because I'm a huge NBA fan, right? So I think about how when a team has to play a team for the second or third time, right? And they always review the tape. They see where did they mess up. You notice that next game they don't make those same mistakes. Like the stats are way different.
Mhm.
And I like how you said sports is more black and white, and art is not. And I think with art, it's more too like you just gotta have that confidence as well. Because like you said, not everybody gonna like your music, but just because one or two people said, "Oh, that song sucks," you just gonna stop doing music for good. And it's
Mhm.
like about being able to have that thick skin, take that constructive criticism, and still build whatever it is you're building. So, and I think that's all a part of the journey and fall in love with the grind is because even with you trying to make, learning to make beats right now, there's gonna be that trial and error, or somebody making suggestions maybe, and it's like
Mhm.
being able to take it in and then still get better at the craft. So, well
Exactly.
said. And y'all, how do we fix this? Acknowledge the work that still needs to be done and acknowledge that hard work pays off. So,
Hard work pays off.
but you guys, it is now time for the drink up water segment. So, if you out there listening, please drink some water.
I
And
don't got
oh,
nothing.
and I have a water fact for today. Today's drink of water fact is water is essential for cellular processes, including protein synthesis, which is vital for muscle repair and growth, according to eatingwell.com. So
I love
speaking of fitness, we trying to build some muscle. Drink your
promotion.
water, stay hydrated, let those cells do their thing. So speaking of fitness, what's a quick fitness fact or tip that more people should know about? Just one, like a quick one.
Oh, this is my favorite one. There's a difference between losing weight and losing body fat.
Oh, wait. Okay, go ahead. Say a little more about it.
All right, so, people are so caught up in the scale, and
Mhm.
it's, oh, I want to lose weight, oh, I want to lose weight, and this and that. Um, Newsflash: body fat weighs way, it does way more to the body than muscle mass. So
Mhm.
when you step on a scale and you've been, you may have been working out or you may have been doing your thing or whatever the case may be, that fluctuation in the scale may be due to you gaining muscle mass and losing body fat. So typically I want people, and what I always preach to my clients is, you want to lose body fat. You don't want to lose weight, because the weight is not the problem. Your skeletal muscle mass is going to weigh a whole lot more than your body fat. Once that body fat is gone, your muscles is going to come in, and your muscles is really what's going to be weighing you
Yeah,
down.
in the way.
The muscle is what is really where all of the density, and all of the size is. So please, I implore everyone out there that's listening to this, drop your body fat, and definitely don't be afraid of strength training. Strength training is,
I
is,
need to
is
get this.
huge in health and longevity. It's definitely one of those things that you're going to need as you continue to get older, because as you get older, you lose
Mhm.
about 1% of your body mass, your muscles, everything decreases by 1% every year as you continue
Ugh.
to get older. So you want to, stay in the gym. Don't just do the cardio. I'm always here for cardio. Cardio is huge. Cardio is something that will help you burn that body fat, but the strength training is what's going to help you, um, you know, keep that density in those muscles. Also, like I said, keep you moving. Um,
Mm,
you're going to be lifting things in life as as long as you live. So you might as well go on ahead and
get
add a little bit,
strong.
add a little bit, get stronger. So whatever you lifting gets lighter. So
Okay.
yeah, that's definitely my little tidbit for the day is think about body fat, don't think about weight loss.
That's a good one. And I want to say, and it prevents injury. You gotta throw that in there.
Definitely.
But it is now time, y'all, for the show up segment. So if you're out there listening, please answer. I always go back and read the comments. I'm gonna answer first. So how did I show up for myself this week? Oh, how did I show up for myself this week? What did I do, y'all? What did I do? I'm trying to remember. Give me a second. What did I do to show for myself this week? You know what? Oh, I took some time to recharge. That's what I
Ooh,
did Take a little social media break, kind of like just spend time with myself, like so I can hear myself better. Had one of those internal like few days, and it was really lovely. I feel well rested. I feel rejuvenated and ready for the month of June. So that's how I showed up for myself this week. But how did you show up for yourself this week?
I would say I showed up for myself by showing up for other people this week.
I like that.
Again, I have a great plethora of clients that come in and they do they're hard workers, and seeing them and the satisfaction in the workouts that they get, it makes me feel so good. Like I'm not even gonna lie. Like if I'm not making them happy, I'm almost not happy. So
Oh,
them being there and allowing me and trusting me to be able to guide them in their fitness journey is how I almost show up for myself. And it's like if I don't do it, it's kind of a like I said, it's the lack thereof. It's just like, oh man, I could have helped somebody and I didn't help
and you
nobody. But
did.
I
And it's
did.
a domino effect. I love that. Okay, that's a great answer. So you, I love to ask all my guests a fun question. So your fun question, you can only pick one. What's your favorite song to listen to get hyped for a
Oh,
workout? Like that one where you like, I'm about to, like.
I do have one song that I would say it's Young Shiners by ESTG.
There you go. So that's yours.
Yeah, that's my turn up one. Whenever that come on, is like I said, it's time to go. It's time to pick up them weights and get to it.
Look, you PR it and everything. Ah, I love that. Okay, great answer. So, uh, quick tip to before we go to run out of time. What's a networking tip you would give to a person who's starting their music career, like they're barely starting?
Man, shake hands, man, and be in those
Mm,
spaces. Uh,
mm,
don't be scared to introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know. One thing that I will say that has helped me a lot in the networking and just being comfortable, because this is one thing that I really was not comfortable at all. Like I'm definitely one of those people that will talk to someone. I definitely you know move around, but it's always like if somebody else knows them and they kind of either introduce me, or I can kind of you know move my way in from knowing someone else in there, but actually walking up to a random person and being like, hey, how you doing?
mhm,
My name is Eban Jackson. I'm an artist. I'm a CEO. I have my record label and all of this stuff. So um but the personal training definitely helped me with that as well, just being out of my comfort zone and just
mhm,
walking up to random people and letting them know that I can help them get to where they want to be. So
mhm,
I just, like I said, ebb and flowed into the personal, into the music, and me just being in rooms and being able to like, okay, let me introduce myself to this person, and not being afraid of someone else's status, and that deterring me from introducing myself or being like, oh,
mhm,
I'm not where this person is, so maybe I need to wait till this person or I'm on that level or anything like that. Like it's like nah, like everybody's here. Everybody's a human being at the end of the day. So, whether they let their status, propel them and thinking that they're up here, or whether their confidence doesn't allow them to see that they're still here with you and everybody's right here. Um, that's kind of like I said, a personal thing that everybody has to kind of figure out for themselves. But just know at the end of the day, like we're all human, and we all have a goal that we're trying to accomplish. And if somebody is willing to help you out, closed mouths don't get fed. So you got to open that mouth and you got to saying go ahead and talk to somebody, and step out of your comfort zone.
great one. And I want to say, when you have like different businesses, all those skills are transferable to each business. So I love how you taking the skills you got for one business and using it on the other. So, and yeah, that's how we met. Look, is shake hands, and that's how you do it. So,
Yes,
yes, y'all don't be afraid to shake somebody's hand this summer. I'm just throw that out there.
come on
But
now.
you guys, it is now time for the wrap up segment. So the wrap up segment, how does this relate to self love? Self love is loving yourself, to acknowledge your progress, to give yourself flowers, and to love yourself enough to know there's still work to do, and that and give yourself the best and to keep going on your journey. So remember, y'all, let's not get too comfortable in the comfort zone, but let's also applaud ourselves along the way. So, how do you practice self love?
I practice self love again by those small times of reflection. Um, you know, you got to take those moments to reflect. One thing that somebody told me very very not too long ago, but something that very very impacts me is you gotta, like you said, you gotta take that little bit of time to decompress, to kind of reevaluate and kind of just um recoup recuperate. So just being able to, find you some time, like within, like, I say no less than 4 weeks, no more than 8 weeks, and give yourself that time to kind of step away, whether it's, you take do a little staycation, you might just, go off for the week, or, what I'm saying, whatever the case is, but being able to give yourself that time for self-reflection, because again, life keeps happening. Again, we get caught in the cycle, we get caught in the schedule, we get caught up in, everything else that we have going, that we forget that, I mean, if our batteries aren't charged, then how are we going to be able to keep on moving? So really how I practice self-love is just being able to give myself the opportunity to self-reflect and to recharge and to rebuild and refocus. And that's pretty much, my way of giving myself self-love.
Okay, I love asking them in that question. One of my favorite questions to ask y'all. So, final question I like to ask all my guests: what do you want to be remembered for?
Ooh, what do I want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered for greatness, giving people the platform to change their mentality, and to know that um, they are, somebody that can accomplish anything that they want, anything that they put their mind to. Being a force of impact, being a force of change, being a force of motivation, is what I want to be remembered for. I feel like, again, going back to greatness over everything, just the mindset of being 1% better, and continuing to advance yourself even when you're at your lowest, or even when you don't have the energy to do it. Um, it just goes into a play of longevity and a play of legacy. And if you continue to make yourself 1% better at whatever it is that you're doing, at some point, you're gonna build something, and you're gonna have something that's going to be able to be passed down to a generation or two, no matter what it is, and I am a firm believer in, timing is everything. So, as long as you're willing to put in the time, no matter how long it takes, you will be great if your goal is to be great, and if your goal is to be legendary. You have to do things that, are out of the norm, and you're gonna get met with a lot of no's. And I feel like, the more no's that you're met with, the closer you are to getting to where you need to be. So,
Woo.
don't let no's deter you, and continue to strive, like I said, and be 1% better, and continue to, not be complacent, fall in love with the process, and you know that natural effect, that natural glow, that natural energy and aura that comes behind someone that is driven with purpose. It attracts,
Mhm.
like a magnet. So, it'll be easy for you to be remembered, because that mindset and that type of drive and that type of tenacity is not found uh, just anywhere, and it's not just found regularly. So, when people are able to, kind of grasp the fact that, like, okay, like, you're willing to do something that nobody else is willing to do, then you're already on the goal to be legendary. So that's what I want to be remembered for, man. I want to be remembered for my mindset and being able to impact the people, and let people know that they can be more than what they think.
Well said. You're already doing that, by the way. And remember, you guys, your progress matters, and progress is a stepping stool, not an endpoint. And give yourself flowers along the journey. I appreciate you coming on here, dropping gems, sharing your story, getting to know you more. Before we go, can you shout your information out where people find you, listen to your music,
Of
and your
course.
fitness stuff?
Yeah, it. Like I said, I'm blessed and highly favored to be here. I thank you for having me. Like I said, this was something that we have been brewing up for a minute, so I'm glad that we were able to put this together, and
Likewise.
I'm excited for the future. Everybody that's out there, you can find me on all platforms at Eban Jackson, just like it's spelled below, EBAN Jackson. Whatever you listen to your music on, YouTube, on social medias, from Twitter to Instagram, it's all Eban Jackson. If you're looking for me on the personal training side, also you can find me on Instagram at Eban Jackson. Also, I do have a training page, GOE Training. That's GOE Training, but we got two N's in training. But I have all of my stuff, pretty much under my Eban Jackson page. So once you're at one, you can find the others. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions, any concerns. If you're, struggling in your fitness journey, please, I would love to help you. We can figure some things out, because it's always small tweaks. Everybody, thinks that it's always these big drastic things that you got to change. Like, no, as long as you have the confidence and the motivation to want to do it, then you're already in the ballpark. So, Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm a sponge and I'm an open book. So please, whether it's the music, whether it's the personal training, whether it's just, needing somebody to, kind of feed off and kind of put into your, your circle of, wanting more in your network, and tap in with me. I'm here.
Make sure y'all tap in. I love it. But I appreciate y'all all tuning in to this episode and another cool episode with some good gems on it. I will be back with another cool episode. Make sure y'all follow SpeakUpJV at SpeakUpJV. My personal is at Vernisa. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, everything. Tell your friends about SpeakUpJV and tell them to subscribe on YouTube. I love y'all. Y'all have a great month of June. I'll be back soon. Bye.